Welcome to the Why Doesn't My Partner podcast.
I'm Jules.
I'm Vicky.
And I'm Rebecca. We're your hosts. We're also couples therapists and messy humans bumbling through our own relationships every day.
We met through our training and practice of relational life therapy. Between us, we have more than 40 years of experience holding hard relational questions with our clients. We're going to bring those questions here.
And together, we're going to take a stab at answering those questions. This podcast is not a substitute for therapy. If something you hear in this episode stirs something deep within you about your relationship, reach out to a couples therapist in your area.
We also love to hear your questions, so don't forget to go over to whydoesmypartner.com and leave us a question of your own. Here's today's question. Why does my partner blame me for everything?
So the first thing that came up for me was, what do we mean when we say blaming? Because sometimes it's for sure blaming.
Yeah. Like you always, you never, you always, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did I say always twice?
Yeah. and like, we're always late. This is your fault. Like, oh, sure. That is totally blaming. 100%. 100%. And it could be like, we get this question sometimes when I'm thinking about different moments when I've been in the room with somebody and heard blaming. And I said, okay, so what did your partner say? And he says, well, she says, I'm tired of being late.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I mean, she could have been thinking a blaming thought when she said that, but there's nothing inherently
blaming about that comment.
I know that I'm the one that interprets it that way in my relationship. So I'm sitting here trying to think of a quote, like I want to give the exact example, and it hasn't come to me yet, but I know that's how I interpret it.
As blaming.
Uh-huh. And then either I internalize it and feel crappy or whatever, or I never lash out, or I lash back and like get defensive. And these are all the reasons why it's not my fault.
Right. Defensiveness.
Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't saying that it was your fault. So I can't think of the exact quote.
Yeah. So one question, if you're having this thought about your partner, would be, well, when you're saying blaming, are you saying that you take in disgruntledness as your partner communicating that that's your fault? Or is your partner actually blaming?
Right. So we're now talking about some boundary work, perhaps.
And I think direct request, right?
Both, depending on which partner we're talking to.
Yeah.
Right. Because if I'm talking to the partner who is saying something, then I'm talking about direct requests. And if I'm talking to a partner who's hearing it, then we're talking about perhaps some boundary work. Right? In terms of how are you receiving this? Is what they're saying actually about you? Is it right?
Right. So if we're getting really defensive a ton, we're probably taking in stuff that we don't think is true, but we're letting it hit us.
Yeah.
And saying, oh, this is true. Even when maybe it's not.
Yeah. What was that acronym you used before? Qtip?
Qtip. Quit taking it personally. So like every time my partner I just carry a Q-tip around. So as a queen of taking it personally, speaking of Q-tips, I used to take everything personally. It's my journey in this life to do my psychological boundary work. So
it's wonderful.
Totally. As a former queen of taking it personally, I'm really doing my work every moment of every day to not do that. And part of that journey means thinking about what's true and what's about me and taking it in if it meets that criteria and saying, oh, that's yours. Right. And I'm going to lean in with lots of curiosity and lots of connection. If it's not about me and I don't think it's true.
I like to
right?
think of that boundary as, and Jules, I might have gotten this verbiage from you, the space between what I hear and what I absorb.
Yeah, I love it.
So yeah, if I don't have to absorb everything that comes at me anymore.
Right.
Because I have a history of doing that as well.
Well, and we
it
all
was-
do, to be super clear about it, because children absorb everything.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Good point.
So 100% of people started on this earth absorbing everything because kids are sponges. And then maybe in our development, we were supported in not doing that. And maybe we were not. And if we were not, we generally have one of two responses. Either we keep taking everything in, no matter what it is, or we wall off because it's so much that we don't take anything in.
Right. Yeah.
And either way is a sign that, oh, you probably take a lot of stuff personally.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Right. Because even if you're walling off because you take it personally.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't be walled off if you didn't take it personally. You would just be.
Oh, say that again.
You wouldn't be walled off if you didn't take it personally. You would just be.
You would just be. Period. That's a beautiful sentence.
Yeah. And so there are two different ways of showing up to protect yourself, but it's about the same stuff.
It's about the same stuff.
Right. So what I'm catching here, is that we're talking about connection and protection, right? We're talking, which is so much about this whole boundary piece that we teach and that we talk about, right? And I always come back to that middle place, right? Because the middle place isn't, are you connected or are you protected? It's how can we be both connected and protected simultaneously?
We should put the and in italics. Connected and protected. Yeah. And it makes me think too of the blame thing. Because that's the other line we talk about.
Right.
Is the space of contempt.
And how they cross over each other. Yeah. And so the space of contempt is, I think, what we really hear as blame.
And I think it is. I think when somebody's in a blaming space, they are showing contempt and pushing that contempt out of their system towards another person.
You know what catches me is that there are times in my own relationship where I might be like in a not so good place. And when we talk about contempt, we often talk about either grandiosity or shame, one up or one down, right?
And we should slow down and make sure everybody's following us on that point. So think about it as contemptuous energy, contemptuous thought, contemptuous feeling. When it's pointed in towards yourself, we're shaming towards ourselves. And when it's pointed out towards another person, it's blaming language towards the other person. Yes. And you can feel that, like, think about, I don't always have contempt-free driving. I do not. I'm terrible. So if I make a mistake in driving, I might go, Jules, you stupid piece of right. What do I say to the other driver who I didn't like?
Same thing.
The same thing.
You just might not know
just
their
the
name.
Language. Totally. So it's just the same language is coming through my head. It's just one is pointed towards me and one is pointed towards them. Right.
That other driver, by the way, always has a name for me. Their name's always Beef Jerky.
I like that.
Yeah.
I do too.
They're always Beef Jerky.
What driving's the example I use as well for people with this concept, because I like to say, if I am driving, the person cuts in front of me, I should say, and then slows down, they deserve my contempt. And everyone on earth will chuckle and agree with me, because that's just an easy one. And what I like to talk to my friends, family, and clients about is, I don't need that contempt within me anymore. So this isn't about letting go of the contempt for the other person, because sometimes they do deserve it. I say that half kidding, but like sometimes they do deserve it. I don't deserve it.
Right.
That's why we step out of it.
Right.
For my sake.
And we sometimes struggle to step out of it. Like
Oh,
even those of
yes.
us who are kind of on this path and who teach it and who are, pretty deep into it, there are days that I have where I am in it, right? And so I might find myself in that one down shame position where I'm kind of giving it to myself for whatever reason. And what I've found, and I find this really interesting, is that if from that place I say something to my husband, like, oh, I forgot to take the garbage out, or I don't know, like anything, right? Sometimes he will hear that and be like, what's up with you? And other times he will hear it and be like, are you trying to tell me that I should have, like, or is this a blame thing? Right? Like it can go there if his boundary also isn't secure. It's not like if he's not in a safe place for himself and I'm not in a safe place for myself, then it can go there pretty easily.
Yeah.
Without intent.
Such a dance.
Yeah. And then I think, Rebecca, you talk about this all the time about how, okay, so if I've decided I want contempt-free living, what is the solution?
Compassion.
Crazy.
It's so crazy, right? Because like in order for us to move away from contempt, right? Like when let's just bring it back to me for a minute, because I think everyone here can relate to this. When I'm feeling like really like, oh, what did I just do? I'm such a freaking, why can't I just, the antidote to that is like, oh, sweetie, it's okay.
Being human is hard.
It's really freaking hard. And it's all right. We're going to get through this. That compassion is like, that's everything. I'm allowed to be an imperfect human. Who told me that I wasn't? Where did I learn that?
Right.
Who benefited from that? It certainly wasn't me.
Yeah. And we can put that towards our partners too.
Yes.
It's hard to feel frustrated. It's hard to let that energy not spew out towards everybody, or it takes that extra step that sometimes I don't make too. Right? To be thoughtful about how my actions land on people. It's like that, Vicky, you'll know this one better than I, but he without sin cast the first stone. Is that right?
Yes, that's 100% right.
It's that old space. Like, wait a second. Aren't we all humans and bumbling through this together? And then I go to the space of, I don't know who deserves contempt. That's a good question. Maybe. Look, I'm all about assessing that people are problems. Please use your assessment skills well.
But it's also, I like how you said that from a very compassionate place too, because part of why I use the example of the driver, because I can use it very loosely and jokingly and everyone agrees. But when I'm having like a more real, authentic conversation in sessions and I'm being truly me and explaining my contempt and my judgment, I will say, and here's my unhealthy self as well. And here's me being judgmental. And here's the example I can give. Because I like how you just said that. Who am I to, I mean, for real, even the driver in front of me, who am I to really say?
Right. I have cut a person off before.
I have done that too.
Not intentionally.
Me too.
But I did do it. And then they honked at me. And I was like, you are right. I made a sucky driving move. Notice I did not say I was a bad person. I made a sucky driving move, but I'm not sure I deserve whatever contempt was going through that person's mind, if indeed it was, because I was mindless in that moment and didn't see them. Right. And, some people are a-hole drivers. I'm not going to lie about that. And feel free, make every assessment in the world. And I think there is a difference between assessing, oh, that person isn't a good match for me, or oh, that I was talking about my kid, that with my kiddo. She's at a camp and she's exposed to new people, and she found herself really attracted to some people, unless she said, I don't actually want to be friends with that person.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, she actually asked me, does that make me mean, mommy? And I said, no, sweetie, it means you know what feels good to you and what doesn't. And she says, yes, he showed his middle finger and that did not feel good to me.
Yeah, so there's some good
Good
assessment
for
skills
her.
there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good.
So
for
I think
her.
it's fine to have assessment, and notice she did so, this little innocent, sweet 7-year-old child of mine did so without any contempt towards the other one. She was not actually feeling upset with the child. She just said it didn't feel good to her. And so we can protect ourselves, and we can make those assessments, and we do not need contempt to do it. Yeah. Terry Real, one of our mentors, and we met through his work, says this thing: there is nothing that harshness can accomplish that loving firmness cannot do better. And that's true with each other. That's true with our kids. That's true with ourselves.
Right. So let's talk about what loving firmness is. Because I think that's like, I think everybody listening to this knows what harshness is.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's hard to like not know, but I don't know that everybody knows what loving firmness is.
Loving firmness was your daughter coming home and saying, I don't think I want to be friends with this person because he showed his middle finger.
Yeah.
She was setting a boundary.
Yeah. And loving firmness when I'm towards me is, Jules, stop. You will not have the contempt thought towards your partner.
And I've experienced loving firmness with my partner when we have been like, there's this one particular moment in our relationship where things were kind of feeling like, do we want to do this? Do we want to do that? There was this whole kind of thing going on. And loving firmness was me standing my ground and saying, this is what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Like the clarity of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Not coming from a mean place, not coming from a blamey place, not coming from a, there's something the matter with you for not knowing this about blah, 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 but just coming from a direct, this is what I want.
Or this is not okay with me.
Yes.
Here is what I'm going to do if you continue. That's loving firmness, right? It's not controlling anybody, but it is saying no.
Yeah. It's setting a limit.
Mm-hmm. So doing it, being clear, and doing it with a ton of love for the other person at the same time.
And or towards yourself. Because sometimes that is needed towards yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So to kind of look at our skills for today, we're talking about making that U-turn, right? How are you taking it in? And what does blame mean?
Carry a Q-tip if you need one.
Carry your Q-tips. Yep. And taking a look at this piece around contempt and seeing if we can shift it towards loving firmness.
Yeah. And using compassion to do it.
Yeah.
Compassion towards you, compassion towards others.
Yeah. All right. So we'll see you all again next week.
Love each other best you can, guys.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
That wraps up this week's episode. Join us again next week for another Why Does My Partner?
We hope that you continue to listen wherever you get your audio and that you'll follow the show.
To go deeper, join us at our bootcamp. You'll find the next date at whydoesmypartner.com.
Did you know you could ask us your question?
Your questions are relational gold.
Go to whydoesmypartner.com to either write in or record your question for a future episode.